News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Welcome to Tool Talk Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning.
I'm Allan Gilbreth with darkhookmedia.com.
And I'm Maximilian, and selfishly, I'd like to wish us all a happy birthday.
What are you talking about? Explain. Don't look at me that way, Max.
Happy birthday. It's our anniversary of when we were on the air here at Cumulus.
No, I knew that. The listeners may not know that. Allan, what are we, 4 years now over here at Cumulus?
As a matter of fact, we were the very first show aired upon this network.
Yep. Max, you've been here the whole ride, too. So.
Unfortunately.
Yeah. Well, happy birthday. I wonder how many listeners out there have they heard the first show or if they were listening since then. So.
I mean, they probably care about this a little bit more than National Graham Cracker Day, which is also today.
Oh, is it? Okay. Yeah, that's probably true. Well, hey, Max, we're making a whole weekend out of the 4th of July, out of Independence Day. So we're calling this the Independence Weekend Special. But now it's also the Tool Talk Radio birthday special or anniversary special, you could say. So, all right, well, happy anniversary, everybody. You guys, it doesn't feel like 4 years to me. I feel like we just barely got started here. But, okay, well, in that vein, Max, then in our great moments in building history, we're going to, I guess technically, Allan, we'll be calling this the a great moments in logistics history. I think that's a fair description. The 1986 Statue of Liberty Centennial Fireworks display in New York Harbor. You remember that?
Oh, yes.
I bet people do. Max, that was before your day.
You're going to have to explain your reasons why for choosing this.
Well, I mean, it was on the 4th of July, but you talk about logistics, and I don't know. Technically, I suppose you could say it incorporates building, but, construction, a big part of construction is logistics. Let's face it.
Let's just say it was the world's greatest example of explosive dominoes.
There you go. Yeah, there's a lot to it. And I mean, Allan, I'm sure, in the past worked with pyrotechnics, and so, as a matter of fact.
I might have been responsible for one or two things.
All right, so we've got that. And I've got a question about water and woodworking, Allan, and it all relates to a piece of driftwood I picked up yesterday when I was down at the Mississippi River. Really fascinating. It's interesting what water does to wood and how you can incorporate wood into woodworking. I mean, water into woodworking. I also got a question I'm going to run by you because you seem to be the perfect person for this. My customer has when it's filled with water, this thing's going to weigh 1,000 pounds. It is a deluxe rainwater collection. What do you call this? Trough with
stock tank type thing. Yeah, okay.
Well, this guy's all about engineering and physics and everything, and he's trying to figure out the ideal place to put it where his wife won't object, because it's not like the best thing to look at either. So we're going to roundtable that, I think.
I've heard water is the enemy, but 1,000 pounds of water, I'd imagine, is a pretty mega enemy.
Yeah. So and also,
shockingly, it's not that much water.
And on theme with water, Allan was dealing with French drains this week in his week in review. So, and one last tease that I'll give in Tool Tales, I guess we're going to call this a Tool Tale. What do you think of this? The Sound of Madness, a tale of soundproofing gone wrong. We were just talking about sound last week, you remember? And suddenly it became a theme. It's funny. What do they say? You manifested this.
Yeah.
Right in my own customer's home, I was seeing a sound situation go wrong. And we'll talk about that as well. So we got a lot to talk about. And, of course, we would love to hear from you, especially if you want to especially if you were listening to our first episode, these 4 years ago.
How about your first episode?
Yeah, I mean, we've been around longer than that, but just we would love to we'd love to hear from you. So get in touch at the Big M Roofing and Remodeling Hotline, 901-683-0989. But before we get to any more of these things, all right, we're going to get to our must-have item of the week, which I'm holding up, and it doesn't, I guess, I'm trying to make a sound. I guess it sort of makes a sound, Allan, but...
the little spinny there in your crescent wrench isn't going to make a lot of sound. But,
yeah.
Welcome to one of the easiest, simplest, earliest tools ever. It's just a good old-fashioned little crescent wrench.
Well, it's a 6-inch crescent wrench. And people might go, well, whoop-de-doo. I mean, crescent wrenches are a pretty common thing. Well, I'm sure you've got multiple crescent wrenches.
gosh.
I mean, I got one that you can, I haven't, I think it's about the 12-inch or whatever. But I picked this because I had a physics question for you. Now, this is a little smaller than most crescent wrenches.
Right.
Usually, what are they, about 8 or 10 or so,
I've got one that's 18.
Well, right. Plumbers have those giant,
Absolutely.
that you can move a truck with them. But anyway, okay, I was in a situation last week where I think the nut was only, it was maybe a 1/4 inch or 3/8 or something. It was pretty small. And I have this wrench and I had a larger one, and I'm like, I would swear that this smaller wrench has more power.
It does.
Okay, explain. Because I was curious about that. I'm like, it just feels stronger for some reason.
Okay, well, you've got 3 forces at work here that are absolutely genius, even though we didn't realize it when we invented this tool.
Mm-hmm.
All right, one, you're looking at the action of turning.
Right.
So, instead of pushing or pulling, which you are weight driven. So you can only push or pull so hard based on weight. However, if we tie the donkey to a wheel and just get him walking, now we can apply consistent pressure.
Oh,
and that way you can crush things, move things, grind things. Modern civilization is based on that very simple idea.
Yeah.
I was going to say that this actually came in handy for last week's tool tale. I had to use a tiny crescent wrench to assist in my automotive journey.
Oh, that's right, because you had to change a thermostat and you changed the radiator in your own for the first and never having done it before, Max, right? So
yes.
Well, plus this probably is good for that because you can get into tight corners with it.
Exactly.
Right?
If you guys are interested, I have a little bit of the history of the crescent wrench.
Okay, let's hear it.
It was created by the Crescent Tool Company in the early 1900s, which was founded by a man by the name of Carl Peterson in Jamestown, New York. He was the one who held the patent.
Okay.
And it was originally based on a design by a Swede by the name of Johann Peter Johansson.
So crescent. Okay, I thought it was called it because the shape is like a crescent roll or something.
Well, it's also based on the simplest possible industrial tool, as our dear friends across the pond would call them, a spanner. Basically, it is just something to get around the bolt. And this is where your question about strength comes in, because the tighter the contact you have, the more PSI or pounds per square inch you can apply, and thus give yourself the torque to move the bolt.
Right. I got you.
Oh, no, that was it. I just...
Now, the one thing I will point out that is extra, extra strong, if you'll notice that on the neck of the crescent wrench, you'll notice that it has a raised ridge.
Well, what do you mean? Like this,
all right, if you look, nope. If you look underneath right where your thumb is right now, you will see down along the edge, it has almost a rolled edge.
Okay.
So you have kind of an I-beam type structure right there. And that is so that if you've got the head of that in place, but you cannot apply enough torque, enough force to move the bolt, you can add an extra pipe over the back end of the wrench and thus give yourself higher leverage to apply more force. Okay. And the neck of that won't bend.
There you go.
I actually did have a crescent-related question.
Okay.
Is there a reason that, like, let's just say, for example, why not... So is there a reason that rather than making the head of the crescent wrench have greater width in terms of how far it can be adjusted, is there a reason they make the handle longer instead of just branching the head to make it wider?
Right. It's exactly what we were just talking about. It's the application of torque. The longer the handle, the greater the arc of movement that you're creating, but you're still only moving the center piece.
Yeah.
So this is why you'll see of old experienced plumbers, especially if they got something that's really, really stuck, they will carry a piece of gas pipe in their truck that is just big enough to fit over that handle.
Right.
And they'll slide that baby down there and thus now give themselves, instead of a 8-inch handle, they've now got a 3-foot handle.
Right. Oh, yeah.
And now you can really work that thing back and forth and break that bolt loose.
So there is a validity to the Roadrunner cartoons and having those really absurdly long wrenches.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
Yes, there is.
The one thing I'll say about this, though, is I'm sitting here looking at it, and even though in the situation I needed it, it seemed to be stronger. The minute you open it up too much, like this, I might use it for, I don't know, a 3/8 or 1/2 inch nut. You couldn't pay me to use one of these for like a 1 inch or so. As soon as it gets too wide, like you lose all of that, like it'll start slipping, it'll whatever. But for the right tool for the right job,
Exactly.
Exactly.
The proper size one also.
Okay, the 6-inch crescent wrench, our must-have item of the week. Well, when we come back, you guys, I have a tool tale, and it's all about soundproofing gone wrong.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Okay, we're all done.
But you've only been here a day.
Well, you know what they say, Rome was built in a day.
No, Rome wasn't built in a day.
Oh? Well, your basement was built in a day.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, of course, we want to wish you a happy Independence Day weekend. We're making a whole weekend out of this. And, hey, but Allan, we should, we came in. We didn't take the weekekend off. So
we
congratulations.
did not. We scared everybody in the building. We were here at 8. We were here early, get set up, and shiny new room and shiny new equipment and really cool desk. It was a welcome. It was a very welcome upgrade.
So we're because it's as Max indicated, this is our 4-year anniversary being over here at Cumulus. So, and in some ways, it feels like we've been here like hardly any time, and then why is time that way? Time is weird. In some ways, it feels like we've been here forever. In other ways, it feels like we just got here. So.
Because you're getting old, Joe.
I guess so. But happy anniversary. If anybody's been listening since the beginning, we'd love to hear from you as well. So, but okay, Max, let's get to this next item.
And now, Tool Tales with Tool Talk Radio.
I really do owe these John and Amy. They're great people, some of the nicest customers I've ever worked for, but they also are like I've gotten a just more show material out of these guys than you would think, because these are people that think outside the box. John is one of these guys that he can't sit still. He's always got to be doing something, and he's a pilot, so he has all this time where he's home for stretches at a time, and he has to be doing something. Well, Allan, he bought this he bought this SUV, and he's one of these guys. He collects these old, like the 1970s and 1980s Land Rovers, like things you would drive through Africa or something. That's his thing. So he bought a new SUV that's kind of in that same vein, the more rugged type of thing. Well, when he was driving, he was noticing that there was some sound that was just getting on his nerves, and it didn't happen every time. You know how like some roads, maybe there's a vibration that you get on that one part of your car at the right frequency, or you get this one, or you hit a bump, and it was just getting on his nerves. So he got this sound deadening material, and it's like, and he had used it on his sink, I should say. He has this really cool sink in his laundry room. It looks neat, but it's about, I don't know, it's really deep and it's metal. And whenever the water would hit it, it was loud. It was like an echo chamber. Yeah. Well, he rolled this stuff and he attached it to the bottom of the sink, and it's great. It worked perfectly. It deadened the sound, and now when you use it, it just sounds great. Well, so he thought he'd apply that principle to his car. So I came over, and he has all of his stuff stripped out of the back of his SUV. He took the carpet off, he took the side panels off, and he's stuffing the side with fireproof wool, and he's rolling this stuff out, and he even put these magnets on the back window for vibration, whatever. Well, Allan, he said the stuff worked great. He took it for a test drive, And he came back, and I said, well, how did it go? He goes, well, it worked perfectly, and now my problem's 10 times worse. Because what happened was all the sound that he deadened all the ambient sound, and now that one little sound that was getting on his nerves was 10 times louder because all these other things weren't around to drown it out.
So he just missed the target.
But I'm just thinking this is one of those unintended consequences that I think we see in home improvement all the time. Have you ever been on something like this? You fix one problem, but it actually accentuates the other problem. Kind of like when you change,
gosh.
perfect example. We changed the sink in our bathroom, in our first home, and we wound up having to remodel the whole bathroom because everything else started to look worse. Like, well, now the toilet looks bad. Now the wall color is ugly. Now the you know what I mean? Now the tile is standing out, and I don't know. It's interesting the snowball effect you get. And now he doesn't know whether he should just take this stuff out or keep hunting for this annoying sound. It's become his white whale. So
he's gonna all right. He can't unhear the sound.
No, now it's
So no matter what he does, other than a really loud car stereo.
Well, that's what I said. I said, why don't you
just
turn the
the
radio
music up? Yeah.
But he's one of these guys. He likes to drive and think and whatever.
Yes. So now he cannot unhear the sound.
Right.
And I have horrible news for him.
Yeah.
That sound is going to be a loose screw.
Oh, well, that's good news, isn't
Somewhere, no, it's not. Because somewhere
How do you
in
track
that
that
vehicle
Yeah.
is a screw with a piece of plastic or leather or something underneath it that has just come unscrewed enough for it to move and squeak. And finding this little darling is going to be like trying to find that one cricket somewhere in your house in December.
You know, it's interesting. You probably are right because you only hear the sound while the car is moving.
Exactly.
So what are you going to do? Maybe he gets his son back there with like a stethoscope and they draw. I don't know, man.
It's going to take 3 or 4 people in a rough road. And, whoever finds it wins the pizza. Because all he's got to do is wherever the little sound is coming from, it's going to be so easy to fix. It's going to be like somebody could just put their finger on the part and the sound will stop.
Well, go ahead, Max.
I'm wondering if the solution that he tried to do was making a mountain out of a molehill.
Well, this is one of these where he probably has too much time on his hands. Like I said, he's a pilot, and he can't be, if he's home, he's tinkering with something.
Well,
it's like he has to be working on something.
This was the perfect knee-jerk reaction to the average problem. But if you've never encountered an old vehicle loose screw squeak, you don't know what you're up against.
But this is a brand new, and I dare say, I don't want to tell what kind of vehicle. This is a brand new, and it's a fairly new car company.
Doesn't matter.
So
there is, having had a million service vehicles in my life, pickup trucks and everything, you wind up with different vehicles that have that sound, that squeak. And it could be the bolt that holds the chair to the body. It could be in a tiny side mount. It could be inside of your seatbelt retractor. It could be, and it's going to be one tiny little spot that rubs only when you get the right conditions at the right speed on the right kind of road.
Right.
So in other words, you just pretty much gave me the blueprints for how to play the ultimate torturous April Fool's prank.
Yes, I did accidentally. Yes, I did.
Makes me think of that episode of The Office where Jim jammed Dwight's drawer just enough to where he could see his items, but he couldn't get to them.
It's kind of like that, Max. But see, what's interesting to me is the psychology of this, because his wife drives this car sometimes. She couldn't care less. Apparently, this sound only bothers him. And you wonder about why some sounds bother one person, and you wonder if it goes back to childhood trauma or something. Maybe there's a sound that somewhere deep down it reminds him of something, or maybe since he's a pilot, it sounds like
All right,
what it shouldn't sound like when the.
All right, what I'm going to say is it has to do with his occupation, because any weird sound in what he does for a living could be fatal.
Exactly. So when he hears a sound like that, it's a trigger.
It
like, whoa,
automatically,
wait a minute. Right.
that is not a sound of operation. So,
Well, and I was thinking about it because we were talking about this stuff that he was putting in the car, and we were saying, it turns out this is something that would be widely used for people that are installing like serious stereo systems for your car. But I'm just thinking, what if you're working with sound on that level, and people are expecting you to be able to find these noises, and so I don't know. There's a lot of high pressure that comes with sound.
You wonder if they have like tracking devices that they could kind of monitor where the sound is coming from for these high level of peeps.
Well,
they do. It's just how much money do you want to spend, and how much time do you want to spend hunting it down?
Well, if anybody's got any ideas, or if there's any sound authorities out there, we'd love to hear from you. Or if you've encountered something like this.
What do you mean by sound? Do you mean sound or sound?
Yeah, I don't know, Max. What do you mean by that? But anyway, and we have a million of these sounds in our home, and sometimes you have to just live with them, and sometimes they torture you.
All right, let me point out, there's nothing quite like being in your house when the lights go out.
Exactly. So, all right. Well, anyway, that's the tale of the soundproofing gone wrong. All right, we're gonna take a quick break, and then we're gonna find out what Allan did this week.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
911, this better be good.
I cut off my husband's thumb.
Attempted murder? You'll burn for this. What's your address so I can come arrest you?
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com, and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, it's been sort of an action-packed morning so far. Happy Independence weekend, everybody. And happy birthday to Tool Talk Radio over here on Cumulus, I should say. And we're going to, in a minute, we're going to find out what Allan did. And but before we do that, we want to talk about our good friends over at Groundworks, who I really wonder what their summer has been like, Allan, because they are all about keeping your foundation healthy, from basements to slabs to crawl spaces, or maybe a combination of all of those. Well, we've had all this rain. It's been a really wet spring and summer, and but the thing with foundation problems is they sometimes manifest themselves in unusual ways that aren't all that obvious, like musty smells or cracks over your doorway, or cracks, those stair-step cracks you might see in bricks. All of those could be a sign of a problem with your foundation. And foundation problems are nothing. You don't wait on them. They never get better with age. And they come in all shapes and sizes. And so it's really just almost, I think, it's almost like, as a responsible homeowner, you should have a visit from experts like Groundworks to make sure you do have a healthy foundation. And when they come out, it's really cool. They're going to bring their equipment. They have all sorts of sensing equipment. They can detect moisture. They have cameras. They have, basically, it's almost like a detailed health inspection for your home, like going to the doctor. And at the end of the inspection, they're going to show you what they found. And hopefully, maybe you get a clean bill of health, or maybe you've just got some minor problems. But regardless, if your problems are small or large, they can handle all of them. And there's nobody better for helping you with your foundation problems. So get in touch with our good friends over at Groundworks. You can go schedule your free appointment today at groundworks.com. Actually, before we get to you, Allan, there's a text that came in, Max. So,
well, now we got Brew Blaster also chiming in.
Oh yeah, we knew we'd wake Brew Blaster up. So okay, well, let's go in order of what we got. So,
well, first we got Robert. He said, "You guys nailed it. It's because he works in aviation. Because in aviation, you start hearing noises like that as something's getting ready to go bad in a really bad way."
Okay, and if you're just tuning in and you're wondering what he's talking about, I have a customer of mine who's a pilot, and this one sound in his brand new SUV was bothering him, and so he took sound deadening equipment to isolate and to get rid of the sound, and it wound up making it worse because He got rid of every sound except the one that was bothering him. And we were speculating, why would sound bother him so much? It doesn't bother his kids or his wife, but okay, yeah, Robert. In fact, I'm going to ask him about that when I see him next. Like, what is it about this sound that grates on you so much? So, all right, thanks, Robert. Appreciate that. Who else? What did you said? Brew Blaster's on there.
Yep.
All right. What did he say?
Unfortunately, there have been instances where disgruntled employees purposely put small pieces and/or bolts and screws in enclosed spaces where they were inaccessible.
Wait a minute. What are we talking about here? The sound? Is this sound torture?
Yep.
Exactly.
Well, okay. Brew Blaster always goes to the dark side here. So wait.
I agree with him completely. And it doesn't have to be a disgruntled. It could just be a dropped part or a sliver.
Oh, wait a minute.
A bit of trim plastic that instead of coming out went in and is now creating a space or a sound. Yes.
But it's funny that Brew Blaster thinks people did that on purpose, which makes me wonder if Brew Blaster does things like this on purpose. Which
he's probably been the recipient of something. Yes.
You don't want to be friends with him during April Fool's Day, I'm guessing. So
well,
all right.
You might lose.
I never thought of that, Alan. This could be intentional, or is it intentional or negligent?
I'm going to say it's going to be more accidental, because when you start talking about the assembly of a car, you are talking about, honestly, thousands of moving parts.
Yeah.
And everything comes in some kind of packing. Now, think about it. When you're unpacking something and you've got those two little pieces of styrofoam and they rub against each other.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that a sound? Now, picture
wow.
if one of those little packing peanuts like that was trapped between a plastic coating and a leather fitting.
First of all, how would you even know where?
Oh, my gosh. That would just, we used to talk about the water drop torture.
Yeah.
One drop of water an hour would make you go crazy. Tracking that sound down could make you go crazy. Yeah.
It's interesting because it's interesting how sound is now becoming the theme this week. But Alan, he put these magnets on his back window too, because he could swear there was vibration and there was things happening there, and he thought maybe. Now, I didn't really get his mindset there. I said. He said, I'm trying to disrupt the frequencies of this vibrating wind.
Yes.
Does that make sense to you?
Yes. All things have a basic harmonic.
You guys would hit it off. He's got the same mindset.
You would just stand there while we didn't speak English for 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah.
But so that made sense to you?
Yes. Yes, it did.
Okay, so he was because he said he just wanted to change the frequency of how
he
it
was
vibrates.
changing the harmonics of how it was interacting with the rest of the vehicle.
Okay,
yes.
And then sound bounces off of things like glass, because I was thinking it might sound like it's coming from the passenger seat, but it might be echoing and it's really coming from somewhere else.
That is correct.
All right, well, John, he's going to go nuts. This is the beginning of the downfall here. But all right, well, we'll be following this with great interest, and if you've got more thoughts about it, feel free to weigh in. But let's shift gears, Max.
Ooh, looks like a loose nail.
Yeah, 1 out of 25 ain't bad.
You don't have any code violations, do you?
Nope.
How many times do we have to teach you this lesson, old man?
What do you think of the house that Love built? Oh, shoot.
All right, Alan, I don't get this. I thought this was Alan's week in review. Max, why are we hearing the why are we hearing
Well, one, I'm going to give a former employee mass shout out. This is why you always have to be nice to everybody.
Okay.
Because, since I stepped down managing big facilities, he stepped up and has a facility of his own. But this is where, they get even with you.
Oh.
Because now you're a contractor.
Because you know where all the bodies are buried.
Yeah, well, now you're a contractor and they hire you to do the stuff they don't want to do. And this is...
Because who's more qualified since you already know the place? Oh, my gosh.
All right, well, one, as I'm walking up the sidewalk to go meet with him.
Yeah.
Halfway up the sidewalk is a repair.
That he didn't even mention?
We're just walking up. I hadn't even seen him yet. He's like, man, come on down. Let me show you a couple of things we need to get done. So where I'm walking...
Wait, I'm sorry. It's a repair that that is in the middle of being done, or a repair
No,
that
this
you're
was
like?
a repair from like 20 years ago.
Oh, I see. Okay.
And obviously, water had damaged the sidewalk. And somebody came along a few years later and just went and got pre-mixed concrete patch and stuffed it in the cracks.
Oh, yeah, we've seen that.
Which has now, as you well know, disintegrated.
Right.
And has made it worse. And I'm looking at this and I'm like going, okay, well, let's start with one of my residents is going to break a leg, a trip hazard. So, I'm writing down just job
Put
number
that
one.
on my list, right?
We have to rebuild a sidewalk. The rest of this is going to be the horror stories of if you don't know how to install a French drain, don't. I'm just really don't.
You triggered me, but you're right, man. I've
Whoa.
seen them badly installed.
Oh.
They can become a mosquito trap.
I mean, you triggered me with the word French.
Yeah, Max, don't ever go to France. Man.
Oh, my
but anyway,
gosh. And Max,
Is
when
that-
you get there, don't order French fries. They don't know what you're talking about.
right
There you go.
But okay, go ahead. Because
Yeah.
I feel your pain on that, man.
So I'm looking at these cottages, and they're very lovely, but they're aging. These things were built 50 years ago, some odds. I mean, he's getting roofs put on and that kind of stuff, but a lot of these cottages, now he's new here, so none of this is his fault, but they're leaking.
Yeah.
Every time it rains, water's coming in the building.
Wait, no, leaking from where?
Oh,
Because that's important.
Oh, Joe, did you just hit the crux of the problem?
Right.
Where is this water coming from? All right, number one.
Above or below or
Number one, do not pile mulch up the side of your building.
okay, below.
Let me start yelling
Yeah.
and screaming. Once again, do not pile mulch up the building, because all you're doing now is changing the flow of the water and pushing it to the building and leaving it there. And if you leave water there long enough, it'll find a way in.
Oh yeah,
It'll find it.
the people at Groundworks are cheering your name right now.
Yeah.
Yep.
So cottage number one just needed to be trenched. So we
Okay.
go around and we remove, oh my gosh, we removed so much mulch and kind of got it redone. And you know what? It was beautiful. It was fabulous. The gutters were working fine. Cottage number two. Oh, somebody really hated their neighbor.
I know where you're going with this. Okay, yeah.
So they have these gutters that came from the second level down to the first level, and somebody had taken the elbows off so that they were aimed like guns at each other.
Like a water fight. Okay.
It was the world's biggest water gun fight right there. So we're like, okay, let's put some elbows back on these bad boys and let's send the water down the gutters where it goes, not at each other's building.
Gosh, what a bunch of haphazard stuff. And this is before you even got inside.
I ain't even got to French drain yet.
All right, well, we're going to continue this drama when we come back here on Tool Talk Radio.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
The Emperor does not share your optimistic appraisal of the situation, and he is most displeased with your apparent lack of progress.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, we're wishing all of us a happy 4th anniversary of Tool Talk Radio being over here at the Cumulus stations. And I guess we should say happy 4-year anniversary to News Talk 98.9 The Roar. We were basically right there at the birth of this thing. So it's a weekend full of anniversaries. We're making a full weekend out of the 4th of July, which is my favorite holiday of the year, Allan. I yield to no man when it comes to my love for America. So, I mean, it's been a great celebration. And anyway, I do have a quick question before we get back to your week in review. There was a thin layer of fog. I don't know if I'd call it fog or mist, or there was a layer coming in. Did you notice that? Is that fog, or was that from all the fireworks last night? Like, what is that? Because if it was, does that mean that the air is just full of humidity or something? I just found it noteworthy that it was everywhere.
Well, we have not had the best air quality here in the Mid-South the last couple of days.
Yeah.
And occasionally when we get high temperatures and a lot of water and low air movement. So there's three things that got to happen.
Yeah.
And that little mist that you saw was actually mold spores.
Oh, great. So there's nothing good about that, right?
Yeah, it's kind of rough being in the Mid-South.
Mold spores. I mean, it's everywhere, though, Alan.
Yeah.
So we're covered in mold now.
Yeah, we're covered in,
Okay, so what do we need? I mean,
We need
I've
air.
had enough rain.
We
Can
need
we get
air.
some
We
wind
need
to just
air.
blow it away?
We just need air movement. So when you
Okay.
get really, really still, we had a spot back in the late 80s where we ended up in a dead cell for like 7 days. And there was like a creepy mist all over the ground for like 4 days. And it was just all the little molds and bacterials and fungal spores and all that stuff. And it was just creepy because, we live in a fairly moist environment in the Mid-South, which, we actually get all 4 seasons. And we get them, but we get summer more than we get anything else.
Yeah, we get summer. I say summer dominates, but also it seems to me that the mosquitoes are really active this year, and so are the locusts. And I'm guessing they must love this humidity, and they're just flying around absorbing water, right? And drinking it up.
They're not drying out too fast. That's for certain.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, I was really curious because I took a picture of it. It was shine. The sun was shining through the trees, and there were like these, almost like you'd see in a movie about saints or something, like a miraculous beam. And I'm like, but it was everywhere. So
now last night driving home, I drove through any number of clouds of gunpowder,
man-made.
So,
yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right. But anyway, getting back, your week sounds like water was not being managed very well.
Well, all right, here's what happens over time. So let's say you've got that cute little garden bed out front. Well, so your lawn service comes by and they mulch it in for you. Well, that mulch is 2 or 3 inches thick. Well, over the year, the bottom part of the mulch deteriorates, becomes part of the soil, and next year, when they come along, they don't rake everything off and put in new mulch. They just put another layer of mulch on it. So every year, you're picking up, I don't know, half an inch of yard.
Yeah.
Well, over 20, 30 years, now it has crept up the side of the building. And in this particular case, these cottages have a dividing line between the stucco and the foundation of the building.
Yeah.
But that line is now subterranean. So that water
it's supposed to be above ground.
is supposed to be above the soil. So now we've created a highway for termites, ants, water, earthworms, So if you're experiencing this in your home and you just have that little wet spot in the carpet in the corner, well, it might not be fluffy. Go outside and look at your mulch and see if you've created a place where water has no place else to go.
Right.
So like I said, cottage number 1, pretty easy. A couple of trenches down the side, move some mulch, let the water out. Pretty straightforward. Mm-hmm. Cottage number 2, let's stop the water fight. Seriously, 2 big gutters, draining roofs aimed at each other across a walkway.
Wait a minute. Okay,
they were literally drowning each other.
I thought, okay, so you're saying that somebody had removed the downspouts, and so these 2 houses, these cottages were
right across from each other, like 20 feet. And it looked like the best
a fire hose.
It looked like something from a water park.
Oh wow!
So we put in some new corners. Go around the corner, go around and get down the gutters like they're supposed to, and that also needed to be trenched and cleaned up. But when we get to cottage number 4, that is when the true tale of terror begins.
Oh boy!
Because of course he's looking at me. He goes, I don't know. I was like, all right, well, let me get back behind this bush. And all right, you don't have to plant a bush everywhere. Really, honestly, you don't. Put a plant in a pot. Save yourself the pain because bushes are little bitty trees with great big roots.
So, okay.
And if you're going to put soil up the side of the building, guess where those roots are going to go?
Yep.
They're going to go on in your building.
Yeah.
So we pulled a tree root out that was almost 3 inches thick that was in the side under the stucco.
Oh, man.
So, I mean, guaranteed
that's a
water.
solid
Guaranteed
piece
water.
of wood. Yeah.
Guaranteed water.
Yeah.
So we trenched this out, and I go to pull the French drain off of the gutter.
Yeah.
We pulled, and this is no exaggeration, an 8-foot-long caterpillar of tree roots out of the gutter going up the side of the building.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So we pulled that out, and now we're like, all right, well, the French drain is now obviously toast.
Yeah, because it would have grown into the other way, too, right?
It's going to be completely full all the way down. So we break out the tools. We start removing the French drain. The French drain is not rocked in.
Yeah.
It has no fiber on it. Now, I do not agree with using landscape fiber anywhere in your yard except for one place.
Yeah.
And you wrap a French drain in it to keep the soil and roots out as long as possible.
I gotcha. Yeah, that makes sense.
Now, one word of warning, no matter what you think you've done with your French drain, the tree will always win.
Oh, yeah.
The tree has nothing else better to do than to get into this French drain. So the idea is to keep him out or her as long as possible.
Yeah.
So we ended up having to remove 40 feet, not an exaggeration, 40 feet of 4-inch thick tree root.
That's no small task, man.
That was a day.
That's a workout.
Oh, my gosh. I thought my poor assistant was going to die. We got it all out. We got it all done. We got a brand new shiny French drain wrapped in material and rocked into place into the proper, at the at the bottom of the hill where the water can flow away from the building. And they won't have a problem again for years.
And French drains, isn't it? I mean, you don't just put a French drain in and forget about it. That's maintenance, right? I mean, that is.
You always understand the roots will always win.
Right.
But yeah, if every year you could send a little something down it to make sure it's nice and clear, would be fabulous.
Maybe test it.
Yeah.
Maybe
put a hose in it and see what happens.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Well, Allan took care of the problem at least, so that's good. So score 1 for Allan on that. All right. Well, you guys, hour 1 of Tool Talk Radio is in the can, but we got a jam-packed hour coming up here shortly.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis. Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just waking up, getting your first cup of coffee, you should know that today, well, I guess it is, I don't know if it's today or it's close enough. This is the 4-year anniversary of the launch of News Talk 98.9 The Roar, and the 4th anniversary of Tool Talk Radio being over here on Cumulus on The Roar. So happy anniversary, you guys. And and we're making a whole weekend celebration out of the 4th of July. So in our Great Moments in Building History coming up, this is really more, we're going to call this a great moment in logistics history, the 1986 Statue of Liberty Centennial Fireworks display in New York Harbor, which I remember it very well. Now, of course, seeing it on TV doesn't give you quite the impact. I'd love to know if any of our listeners were there. That would be cool to know. But and Allan was telling us his tales of woe. And, it's a tale of woe, but you helped solve some water drainage issues, so you stepped up.
They're solved.
Yeah.
Goodness
okay.
gracious.
All right. Well, we're gonna shift gears. I got another tool tale to unpack. So, go ahead, Max.
Okay, I just wasn't expecting to use the same hotkey twice.
Well,
but anyways,
no tool tales with Tool Talk Radio.
I got news for you. We may have a third tool tale if we have time. But anyway, we teased this last week, and we didn't get to it, and I think it's important to get to because not for you, Allan. You don't have kids, although you have godchildren, right? Something like that you torment.
Yeah, I got, family rentals.
Nephews.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I saw this on one of those Facebook, the algorithms know me very well and stuff. And so basically what I saw was they were advertising. We've seen these little motorized cars they've got for kids where they go like 3 miles an hour and the kid can drive. And we've seen one might look like a truck, one might look like a little car or something. Well, this one was a working forklift.
Mm-hmm.
They show these kids picking up stuff and moving them. And I mean, my mind went to, okay, they're probably going to wait till they get near the cat and the dog and they try to lift them up. But it was one of the coolest toys. I mean, I would have loved to have this. These are little, 4 or 5-year-old kids driving around in these in a working forklift. So the question I have for you guys and for the panel and for our listeners is, do you find, would you get this if you had kids? If my kids were, if this was around when my kids were little, I would be very tempted to get this. But also, what if your goal is to get your kids things to encourage them to work with their hands or to, get off the couch and become interested in working with tools and having an interest in a life of, working with your hands and stuff. Is this the right route to go, I suppose, is what I'm wondering. So,
well, I'm going to say interest begin early.
Okay.
So, of course, I'll pick on one of my nephews. He had read somewhere in a book about some mystical plant and was utterly fascinated when he came to stay with Uncle Allan if I knew A, anything about it, B, if I did know anything about it, I would be the guy that would know how to get my hands on it.
A mythical plant sounds weird, Allan. What are we talking here?
But he'd been
doing
reading
what?
He'd been reading, a fantasy book, and I was like, and they had brought up something called the sambucus, which was the most magical plant in the world, and it was the greatest thing, and da-da-da-da-da. And, of course, I'm dying laughing the whole time I'm hearing the story as he's standing there in front of one.
Yeah.
Because I have a American sambucus bush in the backyard, and it's in full glory. And they're also called elderberries, and they're also a secret ingredient in Ricola. And they're an antiviral. And, so this is... But he was so fascinated because in this fantasy book, the author had expounded all these magical qualities to this plant. But the thought that it was real got him totally stoked that this was something he could grow. He could do this. He could garden.
He could have
He could have one, but that opened the gateway door into, well, this is where food really comes from. So here's the tomatoes and potatoes, and this is how you grow lettuce, and this is where strawberries come from, and so the doorway to gardening got kicked open. So if you have anybody that wants to cook, build, design, you got a kid that's just, he loves playing with 2x4s. You could have an architect right there.
Well, and I mean, yeah.
Let them do it. My goodness, let them have at it.
Well, I always wonder, too, because we've seen the tool sets where it's not even a tool. This might be like the Fisher-Price tools where they're plastic and you're turning these. Those are okay, but I still think I think you need something a little more street level and a little more real for, there's a lot of hand tools and a lot of even power tools. Maybe I'm thinking, okay, you get a 5th grader. There's no reason a 5th grader can't be using an orbital sander or, the right kind of drill or something. I mean, if you're, I can tell you this, in 8th grade, we took shop class, and that's where that's where probably my interest in building things came from, is because everybody took shop class. And for my birthday in 8th grade, I was given a belt sander, a drill, and some kind of like a jigsaw. And I used those till they broke, basically. I used those for years. And I remember how cool I felt. Like, I have power tools. And I wanted to use them all the time. And that, I would say, that was the beginning of, making a career out of working with my hands.
Joe, one of my side hustles for years, been taking young ladies to the big box store to show them how to use all of this stuff.
Yeah.
Because, girls didn't get to do this. But, I got news for you. Girls really want to do this.
Oh, yeah. I think it's cool.
They want to build stuff. They want to use the power tools. So I'm going to say, do not dissuade your children. All right, they may be 4 or 5 years old and you bought them a little Tonka truck and they want a pile of sand so they can play construction driver.
Mm-hmm.
Let them play construction driver. And if they want to build something simple, let them do it.
Yeah. And I wonder, too, like, if anybody, because like I said, that memory of getting those power tools for my birthday instead of I was in 8th grade, so they're not going to give me toys or anything. But still, this was a cool, instead of buying me like records or something, I got some power
instead
tools.
Of ties and socks.
Yeah. So that stood out. That's something I remember. And so I wonder if anybody out there is like, maybe somebody that also likes to work with their hands. Maybe they remember that first socket set that they were given or something like that, So.
And to throw food in the mix.
You got to keep turning it to food. I know.
No, I'm not going to turn it into food, but I remember the first time I helped can something, or you went and picked something, or you went and built something. These are great memories that you want the kids to carry with them, but you really want to make these things positive experiences.
Right.
Because let's face it, being good with your hands is a lifelong advantage.
Yeah, and it's just it's rewarding, and it's like, it's there. The benefits are numerous. So unless you're, there are the downside too. If you're like Allan and you know how to fix everything and you own a pickup truck, you'll never have a weekend off. Essentially,
but you have a lot of friends.
Yeah. You got friends. Yeah, exactly. So, but that was just a thought. I wonder if anybody else out there is tempted by some of these really cool, I guess you call them a toy, these little trucks, these things like that.
If the kids like them and they're having fun with them and they're using them constructively, absolutely.
Okay, so that's out there on the table too. I wanted to mention something else that I teased before we get to our great moments in building history. So, Allan, we were down at the Mississippi yesterday, my daughter and I. We like to go tooling around on the 4th of July, and the river had gotten really, really high a while back.
Yeah.
And so, and then it's still high, but it dropped a bit. And as a result, there's always these logs and there's driftwood everywhere. Mm-hmm. And I don't know why, just driftwood is just fascinating. So I found a really nice chunk of driftwood, and I said, I'm taking this home because it would be, now hopefully that's not illegal. I think you're allowed to pick up a piece of.
Yeah, you can.
I don't think anybody's going
to
call the cops on me. But anyway, it was hollowed out in the middle. It has all these tunnels and all these things, and this is a fairly, substantial piece of wood. But Allan, I guess I'm wondering, now we're sort of fascinated with this piece of wood. Like, I wonder how old it is. I wonder where it came from. I don't even know what species of wood it is because it's so bleached out. But what is it about this wood that is just, why is that so cool looking? I mean, I don't know. Do you have the same interest in driftwood that we do? Or?
I actually will go a little bit further and go I get people fascinated in doing random woodwork. A couple of months ago, we had a tornado go by one of my job sites.
Yeah.
And it picked up a very big cedar tree and put it in the back of my truck.
Oh, yeah.
Well, Congratulations. Now you got to cut up a cedar tree, which created all kinds of cool-looking branches and trunks.
Okay.
And that stuff went home with people.
Okay. All right. Well, we're gonna talk a little bit about that, the fascination of wood, when we come back, and then we're gonna be getting to our great moments in building history.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Cool beans, man. I live by the quarry. We should hang out by the quarry and throw things down there.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, right now we were talking about driftwood. I went down to the Mississippi River yesterday with my daughter, and we like to go down by the down by the shore there, and sometimes there's some really cool driftwood that you see laying there. And I took home a pretty good chunk. And this one, as I described, Alan, I'd have to say, just based on the size and the diameter, we're talking a good, 12 or 14 inch diameter. So however old that tree is, I couldn't tell what species of wood it is because it's so smoothed off and aged and whatever, but it hollowed out all these little tunnels and valleys inside, and it created this really interesting finish on the wood. And I was wondering, a lot of people are fascinated with driftwood too, and because you don't do anything to it. It's like a natural piece of art. Mm-hmm. You just take it and you sit it. I mean, I suppose you could put a little sheen or something, but I prefer to just leave it. Just let it be. But you were talking about well, for one thing, why we like it, but also I was like, I wonder how you could do. This happens in nature. I was like, I couldn't really think of any process you could do to do this yourself, like with a pressure washer or it has to happen. But
it takes tumbling.
But okay,
it takes that motion, the grit.
Yeah, is that what's going on? Is the tumbling what gives us that big finish? And I mean the nice. And you were talking about something else. I mean, the Mississippi is full of mud, and every little grain of mud, that's an abrasive.
It is.
What is that, like 3,000 grit?
If you want to see a facial, that is some of the finest silt in the world. All right, to give you an example of wood preservation, of not too long ago, some people I know a little further north had their pond drained, and at the bottom of the pond was a 12,000-year-old cedar tree that had been laying under the silt for, the last 12,000 years. And the wood still smelled and looked like cedar.
Well, it's counterintuitive because you're like, oh, well, the water's going to rot it. But we've heard of like the peat moss man, or what was it? The peat man.
The bog. Yeah.
The bog
people. Yeah.
And things that are
preserved. Man.
The Tolan man. They found a body that was almost perfectly preserved. And it was thousands of years old in a bog. So it's interesting that would preserve it, while it's preserving it, it's also being sanded and it has water and stuff going through the pores, and I guess what is that doing? It's drying out all the sap, or I mean, it's removing all the sap and everything. Because the thing that's noteworthy about these logs and stuff that you pick up as driftwood is they're really light. My daughter was able to pick this up, so. I mean, obviously it's been hollowed out and it's very porous right now. So,
well, to give you an example of the Smithsonian Magazine just had an article about 3 days ago that a gentleman taking a walk by a local river pond, got down there and saw something bobbing in the water, and it turned out to be a dugout canoe.
Oh, there you go.
So how long was that?
When you say dugout, you mean like it's a log and they hollow it out and they made a canoe out of it?
Native Americans thousands of years ago made a dugout canoe, and this is where it got lost in the mud. And 1,000 years later, we came along and found it.
Now that's some craftsmanship there.
You
could be proud. If your work lasts 1,000 years, you're doing something right.
You did something good. So there's a huge business of. I know a guy down in Louisiana that makes a living looking for lost logs that were lost during big logging days when they floated them downriver.
Oh, that's right. That's how they moved them. They didn't use a train. They just
threw
them in the river.
Floated them down the river, but a lot of them got waterlogged and sank.
Yeah.
And a huge business, very expensive wood, is to go find these old giant cedar trees that have been preserved in the mud in the bayou for 100 years.
Yeah.
Because they thin slice them into the veneers. And so welcome to water and wood and the tumbling action. So generally what you're going to find in the Mississippi is going to be freshwater driftwood. So it's going to be beat up by the shellfish and the mud and the rocks and the stuff coming down the river.
Right.
So that's what gets rid of the bark, and that's what polishes it down. But driftwood also turns around and comes back in from the ocean, where it gets swept out to sea, becomes salt inundated, and goes through the tumbling action of the waves and gets reshaped and resanded. So driftwood becomes, basically nature's instant art.
It is. It's like a natural piece of art. You don't have to do anything to it. Just display it. So
Yeah, well,
maybe hit it with some cool light or something. I don't know.
You do want to make sure you're not bringing something alive home in it. just pointing out.
Well, I
real
always
simple.
check that. It's funny you mentioned that because I picked up this one log that was actually really cool, and now within seconds I was feeling these sting. These were painful, Alan. This felt like little darts hitting my hand, and I looked and there was these biting ants.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't know that you could blame the log. I think it was sitting on top of an anthill that I disrupted, and so they were climbing up my arm. I had to get them.
They were letting you know they didn't appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm like, we're not bringing that one home, but I would love to know if anybody out there has got the same fascination with driftwood. I mean, I know they do. You see it everywhere. You go to somebody's bathroom and there's a piece of driftwood on the wall.
It's cool. It's polished. It looks good. It's already dried out. It's ready to be hung in your home and kept dry for the next 100 years.
Yeah. Now, speaking of incorporating woodworking and water, there are techniques that are pretty cool, and this is more of a specialty thing where you use water to manipulate wood. Like I know in shop class we were learning about techniques to bend wood.
Oh yeah,
it's a tricky thing. And then now they even have these tools where you put the wood into this almost like, I want to say it's almost like a pressure cooker. Like it inundates it with steam and water, and it makes it pliable.
Yes.
And have you ever done anything? I've got limited experience with that, but it's pretty cool when you can do that.
Got involved in a recreation program a long time ago in which we built a canoe by boiling the lumber.
Oh, really?
So that way you could bend it around the frames. We were making, and
that would be cool.
And it was. I mean, it was a lot of work, but you basically ended up boiling the lumber until it got tender, and then you bent it into shape and bolted it in real fast, because once it cooled down and dried up, it was that shape.
Well,
and it was going to stay that shape.
What I was thinking, though, Alan, is you're dealing, it's going to shrink a little, right? You got to allow for, you got to calculate
you got to put that in as tight as you can put it, and you'd also put in like a little bit of what they called oil rag.
What's that?
In between them was like a pitch, like a tar, so that you could make
like the Vikings did.
Exactly.
There you go. Yeah, so it's neat. I mean, I'm not as well versed in that, but I do think I also wonder, now that I'm saying this, that maybe there could even be an element of water and I don't know. I'm just thinking of the wood finishing. Maybe we can't recreate driftwood, but maybe we could use some sort of water technique to finish the wood in a unique way. I don't know. That's
actually, you can use really muddy water in a. Now you're not going to want to keep the pressure sprayer for very long.
Yeah.
But you can use really muddy water through a pressure sprayer you don't like anymore and get a really cool effect.
I didn't know. Okay. Yeah, I don't know if I'm going to be doing that, Alan, but it's neat, and I mean it does create one of a kind. That's we talk about that a lot. Just one of a kind finishes and one of a kind looks and one of a kind, But I sure wouldn't want to have to do. I was thinking of these like handrails that you see going down stairs sometimes that have a curve to them. Boy, trying to bend something like that into precision. I don't know if I'm ready for that one, especially if it's like made of oak or something like that. But
yeah, it can be done.
Okay. All right. Well, that was my big adventure with wood bending, and not with wood bending. Well, it wasn't much of an adventure. I picked something up and brought it home. So, but
driftwood's fun.
Yeah, it's cool, and like I said, I'd love to know if anybody out there has got any driftwood stories. So, well, Alan, in a minute we're going to get to our great moments in building history, and I hope I labeled this correctly. I'm not calling it a great moment. We're calling it a great moment in logistical history or logistics history when we talk about the 1986 Statue of Liberty Centennial Fireworks Display, which just so happened to be the biggest fireworks display in American history. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to talk all about it when we come back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
And now for the finishing touch.
News Talk 98.9, The Roar of Memphis.
And we'll come back to Tool Talk Radio, everybody. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, I'm not going to recap. Allan, we've reached a part of the show where there's too much to recap. But it is a good reminder to folks that if you haven't... If you didn't hear the earlier part of the show and you want to get caught up, or if you want to get caught up on any past episodes, there's a way to do that.
Absolutely. All they got to do is pop over to YouTube and give us a like and subscribe over there. Just look up Tool Talk Radio. You can go to tooltalkradio.com. You can also find us on Spotify.
Yeah, and it's very easy. Literally years and years of content. So,
oh yes.
Before we get to our great moments in building history, though, we want to talk about our good buddy Jay Hill with Big M Roofing and Remodeling. I'm wondering if he had the full day off yesterday. You know, I mean, he does answer his own phone, and people with roofing emergencies, or I'm gonna have to ask him next time I see him. But we love Jay Hill. Jay is all about the exterior protection of your home, from roofing to gutters to siding to windows. Jay handles it all, and these are all systems that, as Allan's learned this week, these things all have to work in harmony with each
yes,
other,
they do.
And otherwise there could be problems. And especially with that when we're talking about your roof. Well, for one thing, Jay is always 5 stars with the Better Business Bureau. He's a GAF Master Elite Installer, and these are roofing systems that they're putting in with GAF, and these things are so well engineered that they offer lifetime transferable warranties. I can tell you, man, every time it rains, I have such peace of mind. It could be the hardest rain ever, and you look up, it's a nice feeling to know that. It's also a nice feeling to know that these systems actually make your house run cooler. They lower your utility bills. I've noticed it on my own. But also what sets Jay apart is the fact that he is a former insurance agent, and that is hugely important, because if you have any problems with your home that may be covered by your homeowner's insurance, Jay should be the first person you call, because well, for one thing, it's a free appointment, but also he's going to look over the problem, and if there is a way forward with making a homeowner's claim, you need an advocate on your side before contacting your insurance company. So Jay is the perfect advocate in that situation. He got Allan and I roofs done that way as well. So, but we love Jay, and we love the fact that he answers his own phone. So get in touch with Jay. You can call him directly at 901-484-5645 or go to bigmroofingandremodeling.com. All right, Max.
And now, great moments in building history.
I'm still waiting for y'all to kind of sell me on this, because it's like...
I mean, technically, so we're talking about today in honor of the holiday.
I mean, I understand the holiday, but...
Well, in 1986, Max, there was a centennial firework. There was a display, because when they say the centennial, it was the 100-year anniversary of when the French, Max, gave us the Statue of Liberty as a gift to in friendship. And so it was the 100-year anniversary. I can't remember, was that before or after they did? You remember when the Statue of Liberty was covered in scaffolding for a few years while they refurbished it, Allan? Was this after
was the grand
scaffolding?
Reopening.
That's what I thought, because I remember that in the 80s, like it was all being reworked and and this was the reason we're mentioning this, Max, is, for one thing, it happened on the 4th of July, but also in 1986, this was the biggest fireworks display in American history, and that is no small task. You don't just bring a bunch of fireworks. There's logistics. There's engineering. There's a lot involved here, Allan. So
yes, there were. How about the fact that most of the fireworks were not set off from land?
Talk to me. There you go. Yeah, it's in the harbor.
How about the fact that there were literally miles and miles and miles of cables? And
now
this
that's interesting, because you got to time it. You gotta.
Let's get in. Oh, you're. Oh, here.
Y'all
can't see me adjusting in my chair, going, it just got real.
And Max, if you don't think this is important, I can't remember when this was, but I want to say it was a few years ago, where There was a fireworks display in San Diego where they accidentally launched every firework at once.
Yes.
It was over in like 30 seconds, but
it was
pretty bad.
spectacular. It went kawoosh, kablam.
So timing and logistics are kind of important.
There were a lot of windows took out by all that. Yeah. So, okay, so let's set the stage. The Statue of Liberty is not on land.
Oh, yeah.
It's on an island.
Mm-hmm. A
All you
former
gotta do
battle
is watch,
station, right?
All you got to do is basically watch a mutants movie with a little Marvel movie there, and they'll show you all about Liberty Island.
Yeah. Spider-Man likes to hang out on the top.
Any number of
life.
Marvel movies have shown you this island plenty of times. So here we go. We're going to have the biggest fireworks display ever done, ever.
Yeah.
So let's start with the fact that there were over 18,000 set pieces that had to be built, put into position, and logistically lined up where they go.
Yeah.
Now we're also going to add 22,000 firework arrays. That is not 22,000 individual fireworks. That is 22,000 firework arrays, each designed to create a firework special effect.
That's got to
So
be the
each
coolest
one of
thing
those also has to go off in order how they're designed and where they go. Prior to this, generally what you did with a firework display is you wired everything up, you had basically a battery, and you had what was called a nail board.
Okay.
So you, the maestro, would line up the wires going to and from each one of your fireworks individually, and you would connect the power to them via a nail board. Literally, a board with nails in it with a wire connected on one side, and you would touch the hot wire to it, send a current to it, and launch that firework.
So you better have that wire connected properly. And
you better remember in what order you're supposed to touch them. And you better make sure your board doesn't fail, because if your board fails, it might activate all your fireworks at once.
There you go. Yeah.
This was way, way too big for that.
Right.
So we ended up having, now also keep in mind who was conducting the orchestra during this.
I was going to say, because there's a musical component, right?
John Williams.
Oh, there you go, man. You can't be more
Jaws
epic
himself.
than John Williams.
Yeah, Jaws himself, Indiana Jones himself was the musical score and the conductor. So all of this has to go off together.
Right.
So we have, honestly, thousands of miles of cables running into water onto over 30 commercial military-grade barges.
Yeah, because there were other countries. I mean, this was the military. This was private.
Huge.
Yeah,
There were people from around the world, including, as I pick on Max, the French.
Oh.
Yes. So get your little beret out and get over yourself.
Yeah.
Because at one point, there were over 40,000 pyrotechnic shells in play.
I got a question, because I did see it on TV. Now, of course, watching fireworks on TV isn't like the most exciting thing, but to me, okay, like when we go to the fireworks in, Germantown or something,
right.
It's in one park. It's coming, but wasn't this like across miles of, if you're out looking at the panorama, this is a huge
just picture
platform.
30 full-size barges end to end.
Yeah, that's miles, right?
That is goodness gracious.
Yeah.
So welcome to filling a harbor basically with explosives. And this was also one of the early attempts to cue all of this stuff up to music with a computer.
I was going to say, because I don't remember the music thing too much. I mean, growing up, we had music at our fireworks, but it's because it was it was at Lake Allan, and you could pipe, you just blast it from speakers. But it's not the same as
No,
this.
we had John Williams there with a live orchestra.
People had to hear this. So, yeah.
So, we had all of this set up, and you guys, you can go online and you can look this stuff up. Firework display at the Statue of Liberty in 1986. But to get the magnitude of it.
Yeah.
Can you picture moving 18,000 anythings? How about 18,000 chairs?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, just picture the setup for this. You run a convention.
Oh,
you
yeah.
set up for thousands of people. Imagine setting up for hundreds of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Here's something most people don't remember. Anytime you have a human get together, humans have weight.
Yeah. Some people don't put that into the factor. So, yeah.
Humans actually weigh a lot.
We're a mobile.
And we're a moving pile of weight.
Yeah, that's
so
true.
Even if it's on an island, even if you're on land, people are compressing, and the logistics of making sure the sidewalks are going to hold up, making sure the second-story balcony doesn't collapse.
Yeah.
Making sure all of these things went into this type of celebration.
It was cool. So, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. It looks like it went off without a hitch. Or maybe we'll find out.
You'll never know if something misfired, I promise you.
Okay. You're listening to Tool Talk Radio. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
Tool Talk Radio with Joe and Allan.
Do not get covered in the repulsion gel. We haven't entirely nailed down what element it is yet, but I'll tell you this, it's a lively one, and it does not like the human skeleton.
News Talk 98.9, the roar of Memphis.
And welcome back to Tool Talk Radio, everybody. I don't know where you find this stuff, Max.
Do you think they use repulsion gel during the fireworks display?
You might need it. I'm Joe Thorderson with Thor's Hammer, Carpentry and Wood Turning, here with my buddy Allan Gilbreth from darkoakmedia.com and our pal Max over there behind the glass. And if you're just tuning in, for our great moments in building history, we're calling it building, but it's mostly logistics, and there was construction involved.
There's a lot of building, yeah.
And it was the 1986 Statue of Liberty Centennial Fireworks Display in New York Harbor, which just so happens to be the biggest fireworks display in American history. And we're, Allan, I feel like we need to paint a visual. You were telling us about how much just one of these displays can weigh. Like if we've seen it, you shoot it up, and all of a sudden there's 4 or 5 sparks or something that happen. Okay, how much does that one weigh?
They can be anywhere. All right, a simple pyrotechnic shell could be anywhere from 10 pounds to 100 pounds. Now we have.
And you got to ship those in. You said 22,000 of these.
No, 40+ thousand.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So all of this has to be delivered. 40,000 of these. You've got 30 some odd barges plus other areas around it. Keep in mind that each pyrotechnic shell could contain additional pyrotechnic shells, and when every one of those fireworks goes up and goes off and creates the big spray, and then you get the crackles and you get the other things exploding, each one of those is another fireworks. So just because we had 40,000 pyrotechnic shells means that we probably had somewhere around over 4 million individual firework pieces. All explodable, all made out of gunpowder, all that could explode with a cigarette, because everybody in 1986 smoked.
Right. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we weren't as smoke-free as we are today.
It was,
So just to give you the sheer magnitude of this, the simple logistics of, now we got to load it.
I was going to say, you got to store it in something. You got to keep it from blowing up. You got to keep it dry. You got to keep...
And imagine that
you got to ship it here. You got to, man, there's just so much.
Here's the worst part. Yeah. Imagine being the guys working on the barges.
Oh, right. And you're rocking by the waves are making things move.
Yes, but there are going to be safety agents on the barge while it lifts off.
Yeah. So
you're standing on a lot of munitions.
Oh, yeah.
All right, Joe, let me work with me here.
Yeah.
Picture if one of those went off 10 feet off deck instead of 300 feet in the air.
Yeah, this sounds really dangerous, man. It's like
welcome to commercial fireworks. So that is why this is the most memorable fireworks, because when you start adding up the just sheer volume of it, it is just outrageous.
Yeah. Fireworks are pretty, and they're old. Fireworks go back
thousands of years.
Isn't that something?
Yes.
Somebody had the idea. Somebody came across gunpowder and
Some
said,
little Chinese guy went, I wonder what happens if I put the gunpowder with the charcoal with the saltpeter
and you throw it up in the air and it looks
goes,
even cooler.
I thought it was like an alchemical thing for like an elixir of life they were trying to make originally. I thought it was like the alchemists that made
They
this sort
were,
of stuff.
but it was a Chinese alchemist.
Okay.
And then they went, oh, look, it blows up and it's all pretty. It took Europeans to go, hey, it'll propel something through you.
It's the opposite of, hey, I want to live. If you go in front of gunpowder, you're going to die.
It's amazing the fine line between health and explosions. I
mean, look at nitroglycerin.
Was nitroglycerin a health thing?
Yeah.
Or did that? Okay.
Remember the whole your heart health thing with nitroglycerin?
Isn't that something? So, all right. Well, it was a great moment, and
it was absolutely astounding.
If anybody was there, I'd love to know about it, what that was like. So, but hey, Allan, I teased this, and I feel like, okay, so that's our great moments in building history. The 1986 Centennial Statue of Liberty fireworks
Don't
display.
tell me you have another tool tale.
I don't know if it's a tool tale, but I guess it probably is, Max. So,
okay.
If you want to do we'll set a record
Press
for the third
button.
hot key.
Press the button.
It's not that I don't want to. It's just.
And now, Tool Tales with Tool Talk Radio.
Okay. And so
it's like Groundhog Day.
Well, I mentioned it, Allan, and who better to ask than you? But my buddy John, I'm already getting mileage out of his conversation. I got 2 tool tales from him this week. Well, he said, I got a request for you. You remember that? Okay, so you remember that I told you about that fence that I built for him, and then we built a dog door, and I built like an enclosure over the dog door so that when the dogs come in, and there's even a nice ramp so they don't go into mud. It's slick. It is a nice. He goes, do you think I could put a water tank, a water? He made it sound like a bucket or something. Would it? He said, would this thing hold if I put for rainwater? I said, I don't know, maybe. And he showed me the tank. Allan, this thing's like 4 feet by 3 feet by 3 feet high, and it's got a hose attachment. And I said, what is this thing going to weigh when it fills with water? He said, like 1,000 pounds.
Yeah, about 8.5 pounds per gallon. Yeah.
I didn't build the dog door enclosure for that. This is literally just a little roof. But Allan, he's trying to find the best place to put it. And I said, even if it would hold it, is your wife going to want to look at this? And so, what do you? Okay, first of all, are these things even worth the trouble? It collects the water from a gutter or something, and then it's got a hose, and he's going to use it to water his plants and stuff like that. But I mean, I salute the effort, but is this more trouble than it's worth, or where would you put this thing? Because once it's there, it's there. You're not moving it. So.
All right, this is not a question I usually get asked in Tennessee. This is a question I usually get asked in Texas, Arizona, Colorado.
We're not really hurting for water out here.
We're not really hurting for water. However, if he wants to use a non-chlorinated water to take care of his garden, all of our water is chlorinated and has fluoride added to it.
Okay,
so
that's
if he
a good
wants
point.
a purely natural water source, rainwater collection is a time-honored tradition. You are correct. He is going to need a good, solid place of. All right, let's.
Well, he also wants it elevated slightly so that he gets a water pressure.
All right, so he's going to be looking at minimum of 2x4 and 4x4 construction.
Oh,
because
yeah. Yep.
of a good 2x4 on its edge can handle about 1,000 pounds.
See, I'm Mr. Overkill though. I would at least use 2x6s or 2x8s.
Yeah.
I'd rather just not. Worry
I
about
would
it.
head into the 4x4 category myself.
Yeah. So make a platform. How high off the ground would you make this? Because we also got to make it discreet so you're not seeing it from the street and look at.
Well, I think this is where you would get decorative.
Let's build a little fence
and
around it.
And you're going to build like a little fence or something cute around it and make it, a little misdirection.
Okay.
Make it not look like a big plastic tank sitting out there.
And how high up do we need it for the right water pressure?
Well, that depends on what he's planning to do with the water. The higher up it is, the better the pressure will be. So if he's looking to literally just open the tap at the bottom of it and have water run out.
Well, he's got a hose. He's got a hose attached.
I know, but he's got it at ground level. Then the higher up the hose goes, the less water comes out.
Yeah.
So if he's wanting to water the yard with it and actually have any form of water pressure where the hose tip is lower than the access point, you're going to be mounting this thing 4 feet in the air.
All right. Well, I'm going to consult with him, and I'll report back. How's that? Because
it's going to look like Petticoat Junction.
Because he set a record for 4 tool tails.
Yeah, this is the week we're going to be working on that. But all right, well, we're not doing it now because the show's over, Alan.
Well, all right.
You've been listening to another full episode of Tool Talk Radio. So on behalf of my buddy Allan Gilbreth and our pal Max over there behind the glass, I'm Joe Thorderson. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.